Welcome, everyone, to the 29th episode of the 792 Florida Sports Podcast. I'm Hunter Williams, your host as always, joined from Jacksonville with Johnson Sports. Welcome aboard.
It's good to be back.
I am serious, though. I think we should go ahead and start considering just making you like a co-host on the show. Because I think it's like a fourth show in a row.
Something like that. But I know we haven't done a show in months, so... since September, early October. It's just felt like it's been a while.
It definitely has. But anyway, your alma mater actually played Monday night playoff game earlier this week against Sandalwood. And Sandalwood, they got their first postseason win since Apopka in 2006, breaking what I believe was a 0-5 since 2009 in the first round playoff games. So, congratulations to Sandalwood for finally breaking through and winning a playoff game.
I agree. It's a huge deal. They have such a talented team every year. So, it's cool to see, how they kind of broke that long stretch of just not winning a playoff game or missing out on the playoffs. And they usually are one of the most talented teams in Duval County every year. So, it's definitely big news for them, man. Now they got Flagler Palm Coast on Friday, which should be an interesting game.
It is just crazy with how much talent Sandalwood has, and you're talking about a 13-year period where they've made the playoffs. I believe that would have been their sixth time in the past 13 years, despite, on paper, Sandalwood's probably the most talented public in Duval County.
Yep, no doubt. But this is still huge, and I've got a good feeling that this Friday night against FPC, Flagler Palm Coast, it'll be a great showdown.
I'm curious to see how the rest period for Flagler Palm Coast comes into play, because they were on a bye last week, and with Sandalwood, they're going to be playing their second game in 5 days. Sandalwood is at home, though, and Flagler Palm Coast is down compared to some past years, so they definitely have a shot. I'm very curious to see how that game goes.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I think it'll still be a pretty good showdown. So other words outside of the region, so Cocoa High School, their football locker room was broken into, I believe. I was trying to do some research on that, and I heard that the pads were stolen and a bunch of other things. It was just very shocking to see.
That's crazy for sure. And
yeah, according to what they posted, they said locker room was broken into this past week, and the majority of our sideline game equipment was stolen. Adversity continues to be the theme of this season. Our athletes have embodied the ethos of champions adapt, and this is another situation in which we will overcome. And that was posted on the Cocoa football page. And I thought I heard that there were some pads and other equipment stolen, but it just says game equipment for the sideline was stolen. So I don't know who might have done it. I don't know if it was a rival school. Who knows? But it's just really insane to see this too.
I would say if it's a rival school, you got to look at that area. Brevard County is a pretty rich area. Why would the hell would a rival school need to go steal equipment? They could probably just buy it like a normal person.
And we don't know. There's no evidence. It just reminds me of the episode of Friday Night Lights when that rival school went into Dylan's locker room and trashed it and stole stuff. It kind of brings a deja vu moment right there.
It's definitely crazy, but when I look at on a football side, I look at Cocoa right now. They're gonna have a very easy game against Hudson, and then they get the winner of Tampa Catholic and Lakewood. That should definitely be a game worth watching in that next week potentially. And I don't know why this ended up happening, but for some reason, Cocoa got moved to Region 3 this year, which I think may have given Bulls probably the easiest playoff path of any team in North Florida. And they'll probably cruise right to states before they have to face a team that'll actually be ranked in the top 50 in the state. Or, hell, probably top 100.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's just been, like I said, it's been a weird year. And just, all this adding up to it, it's definitely been a weird year state. And just, I don't know. I don't know what to say, to be honest. there's just been so much going on, and then just the playoff system has been very confusing as well.
We also saw the news that broke within the last few hours, which was Middleburg. They'll be hiring the offensive coordinator from Fleming Island to be their next head coach.
Yeah, that was breaking within a few hours ago. I don't know what happened to Coach Smeltzer, exactly what the deal was, but I think Coach Smeltzer was there for at least 6 years, I believe. So I don't know if they just needed a coaching change or if he quit. I don't know the exact reason, but I've heard many good things about Coach Wolf, who will be taking over in Middleburg.
Well, they're going to definitely have a tall task ahead of them, trying to be able to fight for talent with Clay, Fleming Island, and Oakleaf all in their same county. So,
right.
I guess you could even throw in, I believe, Ridgeview, which seemed to turn their program around this year. So it's obviously not going to be an easy task trying to play catch up all with the talent and keep your talent at home, because what we've seen with Duval County, for example, is all the talent teams get like in these metros, the teams that are dominant, they consolidate at a few schools, but in Duval, we're not really seeing that. We're seeing talent seemingly spread out. If all talent is spread out in Clay County, you might get a couple of solid teams. You're not going to get any state contenders. So when it comes to trying to compete with an Oakleaf, a Fleming Island, a Clay, Middleburg's going to have a tall task, not just trying to keep talent or pull talent away from those schools. They're going to have a tough task just try to build up talent in addition to that if they want to be able to go far in the playoffs.
Right. It is a tough task. And right now you got Oakleaf playing Fleming Island, those three especially, who look the strongest. So it's definitely not easy.
And all three of them in the playoffs too?
I don't know if you also heard some other news, and they're seeing it a lot with the playoffs this year. There's been a lot of forfeits and game cancellations, mostly forfeits by teams. And one of the teams in the regions I cover, Deltona High, they forfeited their game after winning their first playoff game ever in school history, which was insane. But supposedly COVID was the issue because of the team they had played last week, which was a school from Tampa called Freedom High. So they had forfeited. So the season, they're having a rough season, but winning their first playoff game, though, in school history, that was a big deal as well. And I think there's another school, I believe, Atlantic Coast, actually. They just won their first playoff game against Fletcher, but they will still be continuing in the playoffs.
I also saw out in the Big Bend Panhandle area, the Rutherford, who got their first playoff win, it seems like probably since the 90s, they had to cancel their game in 4A. Let me see, who was it? Okay, I forgot who it was that they had to cancel with, but they're gonna be having their season canceled right there on the spot after coming off a playoff game. So I guess they'll end the season with a win, but just very weird to see that happening.
It is hard. It's definitely heartbreaking, though. But the one that I was shocking, but I think was not. I think it's not to bash this team, but I think it's a moment showing weakness, in my opinion. DeSoto County, which is like further down south, they forfeited their playoff game to Rockledge because I think they were having numbers issues with their team, which is understandable, but they forfeited to Rockledge because apparently, I think from what I heard, supposedly they were very intimidated by their roster and how many Division I college signed athletes are on there. And this was like rumors supposedly, but I think it's spread around the whole state, man. And it's been talked about a lot since they released the news about that.
Yeah, I saw something about that where from what I read, it sounded like parents actually basically said they weren't going to let their kids play that game. But I guess it's just what it is. Like, we're seeing that some teams that used to be very strong programs, they're nowhere near capable of competing with the top teams anymore. And in some cases, they're afraid to compete with these teams. But I guess
Yeah,
you're not.
it's sad,
That's
man.
you can see through actions like this what programs are never going to get back to their winning ways, and it's sad and I'm sure probably brutal for me to have to put it like that, but it's just the reality of it. If you're not willing to face the top teams, if you're going to avoid them at every turn, how can you ever build yourself up to that level?
Exactly. That's exactly how people have put it that I've spoken to. I've spoken to other coaches, on some opinions about it and just things like that. It's just the way it is, and it just makes me wonder how competitive are any of these teams anymore. I mean, it's one thing if you're not in the best shape, but you're not going to get better if you don't play some tougher teams, at least on your schedule. At least, I'm not saying your whole season, but at least a few of those, man. But I think that's just the reality of our society today, in a way. Just the competitiveness. I think with some teams or leagues, it's not what it used to be.
That's why I like seeing it with Columbia. Why they always go out and play these tough teams. They started the season 0-5, but they were facing probably the toughest schedule of any team in North Florida in that 5-game stretch. They weren't even when they started the season late. They obviously lost a lot of talent from last year. They didn't back down for a second. They went right after and they looked for the toughest teams they could find. They played them. There wasn't any fear. There wasn't any fear to it. That's why when you look at a program like Columbia, they are always among the top teams in North Florida. And then you look at a program like DeSoto right now, and they're at the bottom of the barrel. And you start wondering, well, both programs have been, well, I guess at least in case they used to be good for a while. And then you look at where they've fallen off. You can look at that as a perfect example. They stopped really trying to be that top. They gave up on it.
Right. It is just a shame, though. But what can you do? It's up to the coaches and the players as well. I mean, the coaches and whoever's in charge of the scheduling, it's all up to them. And then depending on the players, especially with the parental decisions you were telling me about, man, it's up to the players. How bad do you want it? And that's the thing too. It's just you should never ever have to question how competitive should someone be. You should be out there to want it. That's what you're supposed to do. But who knows, man? It's sad though. But I think from what I've seen here in North Florida, that hasn't been an issue with a lot of these teams. They've went out to do what they're supposed to and play, no matter how many good players are, and whether it's in the Jacksonville area or not. So, and I respect a lot of those teams as well. It's been a rough year for sure. It's definitely been different because of the COVID concerns, but a lot of these teams here in the Jacksonville area and just around the region, a lot of these teams they stayed hungry. They stayed competitive, and it's really great to see. It brings a lot of attention.
So there is a lot of very noteworthy games up in this area. I guess in 8A, pretty much all of Region 1, it involves area teams. But I guess of the 4 games, we already talked a little bit about Flower Pond Coast Sandalwood, but this is definitely going to be the game that's going to get a lot of attention for 8A North. Oakleaf at Barton Trail, a rematch of the regular season, which ended with Barton Trail winning on a 54-yard field goal, if I remember correctly.
Believe so. I believe so.
But yeah, these two teams are talented and have arguably, in terms of like the Jacksonville area, the best 2 quarterbacks with Santonio Marusi at Barton Trail and Walter Simmons at Oakleaf. You're looking at 2 very talented kids at the quarterback position, and both these teams are not afraid to air it out, and especially Bartram, that they've been producing quarterbacks going back to Nathan Peterman, like in the late 2000s. Like they pretty much spent the last decade producing Division I and NFL quarterbacks.
Yep, it's a big deal. Barton Trail has been no joke.